Jedd Fisch has restored Arizona football to its rightful spot, at least amongst the middle part of the Pac-12. What is the next step, though, that he needs to do to get Arizona into that upper echelon? We're going to break that down in detail. Let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we are going to stick with the Arizona football theme as we just talked about Arizona getting a massive commitment from Keona Wilhite, and that's where we're going. By the way, thanks for making this your first listen of the day, and the show is brought to you by Birddogs. We will get back to Birddogs here shortly, but let's talk right now about some Arizona football. Now, the best teams in the country, and we've talked about this from day one, but the best teams in the country are the teams that are big across the lines. And that's kind of why the SEC has really reigned supreme over the years, in that you've got Georgia, you got Alabama, you got LSU, you can just keep going. Those, the players that are drafted along the defensive lines are generally from the SEC, and that's because there's big people in the SEC. There's big people in South, and they don't leave the South. Now, some of the exceptions are on the West Coast. USC is generally going to get the big California kids, but that's kind of the one exception right there. I mean, you look at it, Oklahoma's going to be in the SEC, but Oklahoma generally has a hard time in championship games because they just don't have the big dudes up front that some of these other schools do. Now, Jedd Fisch has said from day one that if he was going to miss on players, I know I sound like a broken record. I don't care, because this broken record needs to continue to be broken. Now, one thing that he has said from day one is that if they're going to miss, they are going to miss big, and they're going to miss fast. And that's what they're doing. So Arizona's not going to be able to get the 5-star type kids that Alabama is going to get. Not really breaking any news. Now, again, you might be able to get a little bit of a difference here or there for sure. But I will say that right now Arizona is kind of in the same spot where you got to be able to really trust your talent evals. And so far, they've done a very good job of that. You just look at the lines. And again, we're going to focus a lot on the line on this show. Big Jonah Sabanea would start anywhere in the country. He came in and he started as a true freshman. They're moving him over from guard to tackle. And he already was a first-round guard. You move him over to tackle. That's even more impressive right there, just what he can do. So there's that. Then You've also got the obviously you could Wendell Moe. Wendell Moe, player out of Long Beach Poly. We all know who big Wendell Moe is. Wendell Moe is fantastic. And again, another massive dude, 6'3", came in at about 360. They got him down to 320, and he was starting at guard. And guess what? He won't be ever coming out of this lineup again as long as he's at Arizona. That's how good big Wendell Moe is. They've shown an ability on the offensive line to be able to find some guys. Now it's about being able to find depth, being able to find real depth right there. Now, the first one is you got Robert Polito coming in. My guess, and again, I don't have any insight on this, but my guess is that Arizona would like Robert Polito to hop in there and be that number, and to be that guard, to be that, because I think you're when you move Big Jonah outside, a lot of it, I think, is because you think that you could find somebody in there that can make a difference at that guard position easier than you can at tackle, and I think that's where Robert Polito comes in. It's easier for a freshman, I believe, to play on the interior than it is to play on the edge right there. Robert Polito is, keep in mind, kid from Alabama, or kid that was committed to Alabama for the longest time, a massive, massive individual, about 6'8", 330 pounds, just a huge dude. He's on campus now, and I think Arizona is very much hoping that he can make that that he can be that player for the Wildcats. Because if he can be that player for the Wildcats at that guard, then you're pretty much set. And you're set for a couple years at key positions. Now, again, Jordan Morgan will be off to the NFL after this year, but Big Jonah's coming back for another year. You got Wendell Moe in there. You'd have Polito. You'd have some real anchors and to continue to build with as well. Then you got players like a Tylen Gonzalez that you could continue to work on. But again, that is the theory, though. Get bigger, get stronger, get faster across the board, and you got to be able to continue to get depth on the O-line. Now, Arizona has shown that they can get some depth on the O-line. It's about continuing to get that depth, continuing to push that depth out there. And if that happens, then I think Arizona is going to be in some very, very good shape right there. Now, but you've got Jedd Fisch has shown that he could get difference makers. It's about now getting the next level difference makers right there across the board where if a player goes out, now you don't expect him to be as good as Big Jonah. I don't think anybody expects him to be as good as Big Jonah because, again, you could make the case that he is the best offensive line prospect that's ever come to Arizona. I know what I'm saying there, and I believe it. But you need to be able to find guys that are serviceable, not where you put them in and it's got to be a Band-Aid approach where you've got to have a plethora of different guys who are chipping, helping, doing all of that. You don't really want to have to worry about that. So again, building up the depth right there on the offensive line is going to be key for the U of A. And on the defensive line has been a little bit more difficult for Arizona to find players on, but that's the case. That's the way it is for everybody in the country. So on the D line right now, you obviously got Keona Wilhite. We're going to talk about Keona Wilhite again here really quickly. This is, again, a dude who, again, next level. This is the best defensive line prospect that Jedd Fisch has brought in. And I'm going to stand by that. I think he's going to be able to start immediately, or not start, but at least be in the rotation. He's quick twitch. He's fast. He can get after the quarterback. He's just a big dude that you generally don't see guys like him in Tucson very often. And if you do, they're going somewhere else. Now, Arizona's got a feather up its cap right here, or feather on its cap right here with Wilhite, because if he had been playing, I think, all 4 years, it would have been, I think, difficult for Arizona to keep him around, because again, he's just kind of that next level player that can go pretty much anywhere. He would have every school in the nation. Now, he got in late on the game, obviously at Sal Point, but there's also you've also got to factor in as well that he is it's going to take, he's a little bit new to football, but the fact that he already made this kind of contribution right here, that he already showed the ability to that he already showed that he had the capacity to basically get whoever he wants in the city is impressive. Now, Elijah Rushing is the next one. If Arizona can get Elijah Rushing, then they're in really good shape, because again, Elijah Rushing is the one dude who can go absolutely anywhere he wants, and not only go anywhere he wants, he can name his school, and not only that, he is going to get a lot of money. I know it feels weird saying that, but he's going to be able to get a lot of money wherever he wants to go, because again, he's that good and he's got that type of ability. But again, that's kind of where we're at with this squad right here. You got to get guys on the D line, though. We're going to talk about that, who they should be looking for, who you can improve. But first, Birddogs. All right, Birddogs. Birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege makes everything easy for you. Again, a lot of people don't like wearing shorts. That's their loss. I like wearing shorts. But I do at the same stage, though. You also want shorts that are comfortable and that make you look cool. Birddogs is here for the rescue. Birddogs has heard the complaints from people that want to look cool, and they are here to help you. They are here to help you do exactly that. Birddogs, check it out. Birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege. They're comfortable. You walk around them, and you can look snazzy in the meantime. Again, you like it. Birddogs.com or Birddogs.com/LockedOnCollege. Okay, now we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, And we're going to talk about the Arizona defensive line, who's there, what they need to be able to do to add to that. Come back with us. Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we just talked about Birddogs. Who isn't talking about Birddogs right now? Not only we're talking about Birddogs, but we're also talking about players that look good on the Arizona defensive line. First guy we got to talk about is Deuce Davis. I do believe that Deuce Davis will lead the team in sacks this year. I think he's going to be something like 6 to 7 sacks. But I think by the time he's a junior, I do believe by the time he's a junior, he'll be at that next level right there. He'll be a all-conference type player. And I'm excited to see what exactly he can do, because again, this dude is kind of he's quick twitch. He's fast. Arizona doesn't really have anybody like him on the team. The big thing with Deuce is continuing to bulk him up to get to 235, 240, 245 pounds. I think he's probably going to be best in his college career about 245. It's going to take a little while to get there, but I do believe that Deuce Davis will get there. Arizona's obviously got an awesome strength and conditioning staff that can make that one happen. So where exactly then is this Arizona defensive line then? You got a lot of size right now. You got a lot of big dudes, and not only do you have a lot of big dudes, you got a lot of guys that are not only big, but they've shown that they can play at a pretty high level. Again, some of these guys are unproven for sure, but you got a Taylor Upshaw, 4.5 sacks at Michigan. I think you're hoping that he can be what Hunter Echols was for Arizona last year, because if he's what Hunter Echols was for Arizona last year, you're going to be in pretty good shape. I think Tyler Manoa is going to start at one of those defensive line positions. You got some other guys. Uiagalelei is obviously going to be in the mix. Tia Savea, Jacob Ngaika. But you got some options. But who's going to be that player that emerges as kind of that, that stalwart along the line? Is there that player that's going to emerge as that stalwart along the line? And that's what's going to be fascinating to see if Arizona can find that guy. Because if you can find that guy, then you're kind of ahead of the curve a little bit. It's just very difficult to be able to find players, though, that can get that. And that's why Arizona is having to go kind of with the Tylen Gonzalez approach that get the big physical player and who's athletic, and then kind of mold them into that next level type player right there. That's what you want. That's going to be the next step for Arizona, and we'll see if they can get there. I think that Jedd Fisch can get there. It's going to take a little bit of MacGyvering, but I think that Jedd Fisch can get there. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the Pac-12 right here. Teams in the Pac-12 that are clearly better than Arizona. Now, in the past, we would say 11 teams are clearly better than Arizona, but we're in a different era right now. Not all 11 teams are clearly better than Arizona. So let's talk about these teams. Teams that are clearly better on paper. You got USC. No duh. They're going to be better than Arizona. USC should always be better than Arizona. I hate saying that, Wildcat fans. We back the A, but at the same time, USC has way more built-in advantages. They just have more going for them. They should be better than Arizona, and they should always be better than Arizona. Then you also have Oregon. Oregon's another school, should be better than Arizona. They got better players coming in. Then after that, Washington. Although once you get to Washington, it becomes a little bit more interesting because you do have some talent disparities right there, but it becomes a little bit more interesting. Then Utah's solid. I mean, at this stage in the game, that Utah's always going to be a top 15 team. And if Arizona can ever get to that point, then you would be absolutely ecstatic about that. But Arizona is obviously not to that point at this point. So, again, that's something that you got to keep in mind. But those are the teams right there. When you look at the old Pac-12 South, I know that it's not the Pac-12 South anymore. Arizona, I believe, is going to be better than ASU. I believe they're going to be better than Colorado. UCLA, I think they're going to be right there with. I don't see any reason why they can't be better than UCLA. So that's kind of where you are in the South. There's 3 teams in the South that I think or the old South, that I think that you can be better than. Then in the North, Stanford sucks. Cal sucks. Washington State's solid, but these are all teams that Arizona can beat. So again, you've got a schedule that I think lays out for getting 7 wins. We're going to get to the 7 wins in the third segment there, but again, Arizona is not going to go into with a talent differential or a talent disparity the way that we're used to seeing here with some of these old Arizona teams. They're not going to be going in there in that type of a situation. I think it's going to be a little bit different, and that's what you like if you're Arizona. Just getting to the point where you're able to, just getting to the point where you're able to, let's be honest here, compete with pretty much everybody, or at least be able to hang in there with everybody. And if you can get to that point, then I think you're in a pretty good spot right there. Now, let's talk a little bit more about where Arizona is in the grand scheme of things. Can they get to that 7 wins? What is it going to take for them to get to that 7 wins? Let's talk about that on the other side. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making it your first listen of the day. All right, it's now time to talk about what does Arizona need to do to be able to get to that next level right there. What needs to happen for the Wildcats? The first thing that I think needs to happen for them is you got to stay healthy. Now, one thing that Jedd Fisch has done that I think is very, very nice and important for the Wildcats is he has built up a little bit of depth. Now, again, I think when we're talking about depth, we are talking about getting the right kind of players in, right? Getting the right kind of players in right there. And by depth, I mean, defensive line we talked about, it's going to be more difficult for sure. And I don't think that I'm really breaking any news right there. But Arizona's got to get better along the defensive line, but at some of the other spots, Arizona's good. And that's where it's exciting if you're an Arizona fan that you're at that spot where, listen, nobody wants Jayden de Laura to go down, obviously, but the one thing about it is you now have some real capable quarterbacks in Noah Fifita. I know there's questions about Noah Fifita. He's 5'7". I get all that. But if there's anybody that can break that mold, it's going to be Noah Fifita. You watch him in practice, and not only do you see him, he can make every throw. He's got the strongest arm on the team, but he also has just shown the ability to get to that next level right there where you can make plays when it's broken down. Some guys just kind of get it. And not only do they just kind of get it, they also have just that next level kind of intuition to him. And that's him. You can tell that he's the son of a coach, and you can tell that there was a reason that Jedd Fisch and staff, I don't want to say took a chance on him, but it was easy to see what they saw in him. Because again, if you get past the height, and people always mention this, if Noah Fifita was 6 foot, he'd be at Alabama. He's 5'7", 5'8". He's at the University of Arizona, and we will gladly take him. But if Jayden de Laura were to go down, Arizona still has a pretty good chance, I think, to win a lot of games. And that's not something you could say in the past. We've talked about ad nauseum about how the receivers are absolutely loaded, as are the running backs. I think the cornerback position is actually a little bit more intriguing as well, because there's a lot of options there. You got Ephesians Prysack, you got Charles Yates, you got Traden Stukes, you got some other players that are going to be coming in. You got a little bit more depth there. I mean, heck, at the linebacker spot, which I think is going to be Arizona's most talented defensive spot, you got Leviticus Sua coming in, who was the California Player of the Year. And he might not even start initially. Now, again, I think there's going to be a point when he starts, but he's kind of at that spot now where that he's going to play a lot, but again, you're loaded at linebacker. It's just about being able to fill out those spots. But I do believe Arizona is going to get to 7 wins. I think, again, the big thing about it is I look on the schedule and I say to myself, what teams can't Arizona beat? And there's probably only a couple of them right there. So, again, that's where it is with Arizona. 7 wins. I am saying it. Go to FanDuel and bet the over on Arizona wins this year. Told you to do it last year. If you were smart, you hopped in there. But you know what? It's never too late to erase a bad mistake, and that's what Arizona is going to do right there. So, again, I look for 7 wins. The next stage for Arizona football, continuing to beef up those lines. Where you've got some good players now. You got to be able to get that second unit that is right there as well. And again, in the Pac-12, there's only about 3, maybe 4 teams at max that I say that Arizona would have a very, very difficult time beating. That's why we're all in on the 7 wins right there. Again, so we're back in the A to the fullest right there. So on that note, you have a great rest of your week. I'm going to be traveling up to Phoenix. I'm going to be traveling up to Phoenix tomorrow to check out Arizona basketball recruits at the Section 7. That's going to be a lot of fun. So we'll be back with you on Monday, being able to break all of that down for you. But as always, you have a great rest of your day, and thank you again for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day.